So it's good to see everyone there. I'm not sure if mediated is right word for what I want to talk about, but you'll see as I proceed. So what I really want to talk about is the implications for workflows of increased use of AI methods in scientific research from a particular perspective, as you'll see. So let's see if I can make this go forward. Yes. So this is someone's sketch of the scientific method, which we've been engaged in for, I guess, centuries. I would say, until recently, many of these processes were regarded as being largely the domain of humans. Some things, of course, like testing and assessing, computers were used extensively, but others, like coming up with research questions and hypothesizing, developing hypotheses, were largely the domain of humans. But increasingly, it seems that people are probing in various ways at the question of how we might be able to use AI methods to accelerate various other steps, ultimately perhaps arriving at an accelerated scientific method in which one can proceed quasi-autonomously around this study, hypothesis, test, etc. Cycle. And the methods that have been used range greatly from generative methods for generation of hypotheses to robotic labs and simulation methods for testing hypotheses, maybe not so new, and then new methods for extracting knowledge from large quantities of scientific literature, etc. So I'll give you I'll use an example illustrate some of the techniques that people, myself and many others, in particular here, Arvind Ramanathan and his team, have been pursuing. So, their interest is in discovering or designing antimicrobial peptides. These are small amino acid chains that have the ability to disrupt the functioning of various pathogens. The goal is to come up with such a chain that will kill a particular target strain of bacteria or other pathogen without harming host cells. And, there are only 15 to 50 amino acids. What can be so difficult? Well, of course, there are very large numbers of possible antimicrobial peptides, even for fairly short lengths, say length 20 is shown here. So a human addressing this problem without the aid of AI might review the literature, perform simulations, perform experiments. These are all things that potentially, at least, can be automated. So, for example, let's say we want to come up with hypotheses concerning potential mechanisms of actions that we then for which we might want to design protocols that we would evaluate experimentally or via simulation. Arvind and Priyanka Sethi, one of a student of ours, has been building a very simple version of such an agent, if you like, or an expert that can use AI methods to attempt to come up with such potential mechanisms of action. So, and it does this using, it's almost a trivial technique in the current time, but actually it's remarkably effective in some cases. Retrieve a set of abstracts from some source like PubMed that reference a particular peptide, and then use the technique called retrieval augmented generation to ask a question like, given this set of abstracts, on which organism is this peptide, and specify the name of the peptide acting or likely to act. And you get back a set of answers, which you can then process in various ways and perhaps generate experimental protocols to verify. Of course, in order to do this effectively, you want we're using ChatGPT for now, but we would like a large language model which knows more than ChatGPT about peptides. We want to be able to make millions of such requests because we've got millions of potential peptides we want to try. And for those reasons, we're at the moment developing our own large language model at Argonne, specialized for science, called Aurora GPT. Others are doing similar things, including our colleagues at Oak Ridge. And we also would like this expert to improve over time by observing its own behavior. So we would like to have a continually refining, self-improving AI agent. So our peptide expert, we might say, is an example of what people in the AI biz might call an embodied agent. That means a computational system that can interact with its environment and learn from those interactions. It's persistent, stateful. It can sense and act, and maybe sensing is, for example, a question of looking up things in PubMed, but it's a form of sensing. Acting might be performing a simulation or an experiment, etc. That environment can either be physical, say a self-driving lab, or virtual, such as a supercomputer, if you can think of a supercomputer as virtual. And then it's going to learn over time by adapting its responses. Okay, so interesting questions. The system that I just showed you is one that currently it queries PubMed, calls ChatGPT, it accesses data repositories and invokes other agents and runs things on high-performance computers, and it learns by accumulating data and learning to improve its answers. At the moment, it tends to just run when we're performing experiments, but ultimately, if it's going to learn, you could imagine this agent running for hours, months, years, continuing to improve its capabilities. And we're starting at least to move from the hours to the months at the moment. So we can create many such embodied agents. So I've shown one on the left here, the PubMed agent. We can have others that know something about how to align proteins and predict protein structures by performing computations using tools like AlphaFold, and then other methods, other agents that can do things like evaluating structure, filtering results, and so forth. And under the covers, these so-called agents are actually accessing a fair bit of the environment, science environment that we've developed over the years, using our supercomputers, our experimental facilities, accessing public and private databases, and so on and so forth. So pretty interesting set of things that can be done. So we're concerned about how to make these things run reliably, scalably, securely, etc. So under the covers, we're working out how to link these agents together into what we call flows, basic simple workflows, very simple workflows really, but doing very interesting things. And then, we're using a technology called Globus Flows, which you probably heard about, to run these things. And this is just a slide to show you that these things are working effectively. We're making use of the Globus ecosystem, of course, as any sensible person would want to do, in order to address the authentication, authorization requirements of accessing resources on a global scale, and providing for reliable and managed orchestration. So if these things are going to be running for hours, days, weeks, we want them to be able to do that in a way that is secure, reliable, performant, and that supports, for example, delegation of the authority to perform actions on behalf of users who are running these things. And then we need to be able to do other things like link with HPC agents. So, for example, the aligning proteins, evaluating structures, probably involve running computation on HPC systems. For that, we use Globus Compute to perform remote actions. And then we also want to be able to run experiments. So we have a fair bit of activity underway at Argonne in particular on how to deploy subcomponents of these flows onto self-driving labs, which is mostly really fun, sometimes frustrating. Physical apparatus are much harder to work with than logical apparatus, but it's nevertheless mostly fun process. And then ultimately, feedback into the next phase of this process. So this is a form of workflow, of course, that we're running. And you looking at the number of circles on the screen, you might say it's a very simple one, but it also has interesting dimension of the notion of the fact that it runs for very extended periods. It engages a particularly wide variety of devices, apparatus, etc. And it's highly stateful, and it's improving various elements of their learning. I'll give you another just to show that not just about biology. Another group at Argonne, Eliu Huerta and friends, is design of metal organic frameworks used for things like carbon dioxide absorption and catalysis. We're not using the same iconography, but you can see similar sets of entities. Some are running supercomputer simulations, others are training machine learning models, retraining them as new data is produced, and again running for extended periods with these different forms of activity interacting as the simulation performs. The computation proceeds. So far here, we don't have experimental validation components, but we plan to create such. And this is just a rather old slide, but showing the sorts of computational usage you get when running a flow like the previous one just shown on the previous slide. You've got a mix of simulations generating new generative models, generating new candidate structures, simulations, evaluating those structures, machine learning model training to improve the generative model and to generate a model that can be used to evaluate the potential properties of structures without performing expensive simulations, and so on and so forth. Okay, so to start to wrap up this very brief talk. So, I find this question of, I've always been fascinated by the question of how computers can accelerate discovery in science. And one thing that I find exciting about the current rapid developments in so-called AI methods is that we can start to eliminate other previously rate limiting steps in the discovery process. Of course, we already use computers to evaluate candidate ideas in various ways, but now we can also use them to extract knowledge from literature, to generate new hypotheses, to run experiments to test hypotheses, to detect problems in the results of experiments and simulations, and so on and so forth. And the result is, I think, a very different set of computational requirements and workflow requirements. So we imagine a future in which we may have a community of many different, AI-based scientific assistants or agents or whatever you want to call them that would do many different things. And I've mentioned some of the things listed on the slide, not all of them. And there are, I'm sure, others that I have not had the space here to include. And, we can imagine this community of AI-based scientific assistants or agents encompassing many skills. As I've noted, they need to interact with many resources in many places with the authority, perhaps, to perform actions without direct human interaction. They're increasingly going to be stateful and persistent. so that they can learn and improve their properties over time. And they're going to generate requests or demands on computing and other infrastructure that can vary over many orders of magnitude, as I say here, in size and request rate. So when evaluating small candidates, we might be generating millions of requests at a time. At other times, we may be generating supercomputer simulation requests that we can only perform a few of. And coming up with techniques that can deal with all of these things, I think, is going to be a fascinating challenge. So we ourselves at Argonne in Chicago and with collaborators are leveraging our Globus framework to manage some aspects of this. We're working out how to extend it to deal with things, for example, such as stateful agents. But there's a lot more and many interesting things to be done. So thank you very much.